So I'm going to try something new with this particular Nintendo Power review. I'm going to be eating a plate of spicy wings while I do my usual review, and I've got a couple beers to go with it. I'm going to have a good time with this one. Now, I've got 6 different hot sauces here, 6 hot sauces of increasing levels of spiciness. And I was completely inspired to do this by the show Hot Ones. So I just want to thank Sean Evans and Hot Ones for being one of the best shows on YouTube. And yeah, let's get to it, shall we? So yeah, I guess I'll start with my first wing here. This one is Louisiana hot sauce, good stuff. Not too spicy compared to the other ones. And we're going to go ahead and take a big bite of this. Pretty tasty. So for this month's Player's Pulse, we've got a bunch of letters from people saying that the Super NES is superior to the Sega Genesis. So I guess this is Slam the Sega Genesis month. Jason from New York says, I believe that Super NES games are 10 times more challenging than games for other systems. And with the price of the Super NES getting lower and lower, there is no comparison. I disagree on the challenge. I've played some Sega Genesis games that were like impossible to beat. Steven from Albuquerque says, why aren't there any good games coming out for the NES? I don't have a Super NES. Maybe it's time you upgraded, Steven. We've got some CD-ROM news here. Nintendo has announced that its upcoming CD-ROM system will feature... Oh boy, let's just stop there because we all know what happened with the Sony PlayStation. Did not go well for Nintendo. Here is Batman Returns, starring Michael Keaton. And I'm going to go ahead and take another bite of this chicken wing now. We got the second wing. This is the Queen Majesty Scotch Bonnet and Ginger. The sauce that Chris Jericho liked the most when he appeared on Hot Ones. Let's give it a shot. That's a spicy wing. It's a spicy wing there. That's a good sauce too. So yeah, this game features Catwoman. You actually battle her, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. And here's the Penguin, played by Steve Bannon. And here's Tecmo NBA Basketball. Okay, great. The question is, can I play as Bill Laimbeer? And speaking of beer, actually forget Bill Laimbeer. The real superstar of 80s NBA basketball, Slim Nader. 1 or 2 people out there are going to know what the hell I'm talking about. Alright, next up we've got Chelsea hot sauce. This stuff is actually really hot for something you can buy in a store, and surprisingly so. And this is actually locally made here in the Boston area. It's made in the town of Chelsea. Smoky. That one's good too. So, this month's classified information, we've got Contra 3, the Alien Wars. And we've got a code, well actually it's not a code, it's a trick to get 30 lives, which is great. Because in the original Contra you had that code to get 30 lives, which I always need to use to get anywhere with that game. Speaking of 1-ups, we've also got a code for Super Star Wars to stock up on 1-ups. Back then, if you wanted to beat any of these really tough video games, you had to stock up on 1-ups. That was the key. Just get as many 1-ups as you can. It wasn't like it is now where you have checkpoints and unlimited lives. No, back then you had to get the 1-ups. We got a code for Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the Game Boy. I've probably told this story multiple times before. Let me tell it again real quick. When I was a kid, before I had a Game Boy, the #1 game that I wanted for Game Boy was Terminator 2. I mean, I was a huge T2 fan, still am. So, in some other universe, it was probably my first video game, and I probably then hated video games and wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you. But regardless, we've got T2 for the Game Boy, and apparently on the second level, this is so random, on the second level of the Game Boy game, there's a hidden continue symbol that you can get near the beginning of the stage. It's the only one in the entire game, and it'll let you continue once if you run out of lives. So yeah, you find this hidden symbol, And then you have one extra continue for the rest of the game. Good luck. Oh, sweet! We're up to the final battle of Zelda: A Link to the Past. The comics, I mean. The final battle of the comics. We've got Link and Ganon crossing blades. Never mind that Ganon is wearing a woman's kind of cardigan kind of thing, and he's wearing a necklace of beads. Regardless, you know, Link is taking the fight to him. They are locked in combat. You know what this does? It makes me want to play Ocarina of Time. Because as good as A Link to the Past is, Ocarina of Time was the first Zelda game to fully realize the idea of Link moving through three-dimensional space and really having a battle like this. Oh man, so here we have Ganon actually getting the better. Hold on, let me just rewind a little bit. Look at this picture. I mean, I'm gonna get a close-up shot of it, but that is quite a picture right there. Link comes back with a mighty slash. Ganon backs away. Zelda has a chance to fire the bow at him. Isn't this exactly what happened in Ocarina of Time? I feel like it is. She fires the arrow. It pierces Ganon's heart. Ganon explodes. Let's get a shot of this. Ganon explodes in a shower of light and sound. So then Link recovers the Triforce. Him and Zelda live happily ever after and have lots of blonde babies. Great comic. This is probably my favorite out of all the comics that Nintendo Power ever did. Also, it's pretty cool that Ocarina of Time actually drew inspiration from these Nintendo Power comics. The final battle of Ocarina of Time definitely takes after this battle. And also, the moon in Majora's Mask takes off of, there's one scene in one of these comics where you see the moon and it has a face on it, which no doubt inspired Majora's Mask on some level. In any case, Link gets on his knees in front of Zelda, and then he becomes Sir Link of the realm, and he starts wearing armor. I mean, I don't know why he didn't start wearing armor sooner, because I mean, he's been fighting for like, 3 weeks straight. Why wasn't he wearing any armor the whole time? He's like running around with no pants on. And as we can see, the Master Sword now lays waiting in the forest for the next hero, 1,000 years later, whenever, and it collects moss. And that's the end of this comic, because we are moving on to Da Bomb Hot Sauce. This stuff is intense, really intense, much more intense than the first three that I had. Here we go, get a good look at that. Beer isn't helping. Done. That didn't even hurt. Alright, next up, we have Super Mario Land 2. 6 golden coins. Oh my god. This was a terrible fucking idea. None of what's happening right here is acting right now. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. This is the game that introduces Wario, who is now a big fan favorite. The first level, it was always my favorite. The gateway level, the intro level. I really like this level because it's very similar to the regular Mario games and their levels. It's got that, that regular Mario vibe with just running left to right, hitting blocks. Then the other zones all kind of take things in different directions. You got the tree zone, the macro zone, the Mario zone, the turtle zone. The Mario zone is actually a giant Mario statue, and you have to move around inside of it, and there's all kinds of like mechanical stuff to deal with. It's kind of like a Mega Man level when it comes down to it. And then you've got the Pumpkin Zone, which is like a ghost house type level. A lot of fun there. And the Space Zone, where you have low gravity, you can jump really high, and it has really funky music, which is cool. I definitely remember reading this issue as a kid, and one of the things I loved to do as a kid, before I owned a single Mario game, was to design Mario levels with pen and paper. Just sit down, draw a Mario level, design it. It was so much fun for me. And I remember reading this particular issue and being inspired by the screenshots in this issue. I remember looking at the Mario Castle shots where you have these fire-spitting piranha plants and being like, I'm going to create a level with just fire-spitting everything. And I just had all kinds of stuff spitting fire at you. And yeah, when I was a kid, I had so much fun just creating things in a notebook. I just want to point out that, you know, Bonk's Adventure, obviously, you know, it might be a great game, I don't know, but obviously it can't really follow Super Mario Land 2. But I really do want to point out that the overworld map here looks so much like the overworld map of Super Mario Land 2 that we were just looking at like 2 pages ago. So on a normal month, I think this game would be pretty enticing. But on this particular month, when it's right next to Super Mario Land 2 in the coverage, I don't know, it's like launching your movie the same day as a new Avengers movie. Alright, onward, we've got Super Mario Adventures. And these comics are decidedly less serious than the Zelda comics. The Zelda comics tell a very nice fantasy tale. The Mario comics are more like just a standard cartoon where you have the villain constantly getting trounced, you know. They're fun too, but, you know, different kind of comics. So you have this army of Yoshis bum-rushing Bowser. You have Bowser's minions bum-rushing the Yoshis. I'm going to get a close shot of this one. So let's see, I believe, yes, this is the final episode of the Mario comic. So this particular issue, this unassuming Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally issue, this just plain unassuming issue, is the issue that ends both the Zelda and Mario comics. Possibly the best run of comics that Nintendo Power ever had. So it's only fitting that I would make this a special episode with my hot wings, my hot sauces. I'm really afraid to try the last two. You've got the next one that I'm going to have to eat. I'm not looking forward to this. Mad Dog 357. This is kind of an apple flavored hot sauce. Pretty tasty. The only problem is, you're not gonna believe this, but Mad Dog 357, 357,000 Scovilles. So yeah, about twice as strong as Da Bomb, the one that just messed me up. And then finally you've got Blair's Mega Death Sauce with Liquid Rage. This stuff is a lot of fun, but you better believe that it's intense. So, the Mario comics, finally getting back to this, the Mario comics end with Bowser falling into a cake, and Luigi says, well, he got his just desserts, and a laugh track plays in the background. And then the princess gives Mario a smooch. Smooches him on the cheek. Don't delude yourselves into thinking that there was any kind of lip kissing or anything sexual happening. This is just a peck. Not even like a full-on like smooch, just a peck on the cheek. And he's happy with them. And you know what? I think that's cool. I think it's good that Mario is such a noble dude. That he's happy with just a peck on the cheek because he knows that his friend the princess is safe. He's a good man. We've got some Link to the Past questions here, and I remember seeing this as a kid, and believe you me, when I was a kid, I loved seeing screenshots of A Link to the Past. I hadn't played it yet, but it was really cool to see shots of it. Here we've got Street Fighter 2. He explains how to do some super moves. And he explains how to beat M. Bison with Zangief and Dhalsim. I remember when I was a kid, I was looking at this and I immediately thought, wait, so Zangief and Dhalsim are more difficult to defeat the final boss with than the other characters? And that told me that those two guys were the worst characters. Like, oh, they must be the weakest characters if you need to like read this to be able to win the game with them. So I perpetually, for a long time, thought that those two guys were not worth using. Zangief is pretty slow, but Dhalsim's a great character. I actually beat the game with him when I finally played Street Fighter 2 campaign. He's the character I ended up beating the game with. Regardless, something similar happened with Killer Instinct. The Killer Instinct coverage in Nintendo Power had a bunch of game counselors, each picking one character, and each one would get one page to talk about that character, show off their moves, whatever. Nobody picked Cinder. Not one person picked Cinder. Chief Thunder, on the other hand, two people picked Chief Thunder. Every other character, one person picked. So I'm reading the Killer Instinct coverage, and I'm like, okay, Chief Thunder must be the best character because 2 people picked him. And no one picked Cinder, so Cinder must be the worst character. So it's funny how little things like that can send a message to your brain. We've also got Dragon Warrior 3. How do I get through the Castle of Baromos? Baromos! I don't know why I said it like that. Man, Dragon Warrior games were so cool. You know, you got that classic NES graphic look to them, and classic NES battles. They're just so NES-y. You know, nothing fancy at all. I kind of feel the same way about EverQuest, the original EverQuest. It was made in 1999, or at least it released in 1999. And you can tell that it released in 1999. It's been through some visual upgrades, but even now it only looks like it's from like maybe 2005. And yet, it's such a tight, cohesive game that it's fun to play even now. We got the cover game, oddly enough. I think Super Mario Land 2 should have been the cover game, but you know, it's all good. Roadrunners Death Valley Rally, starring Wile E. Coyote. So yeah, this game looks interesting. I've never played it. This game is actually the reason why I decided to do this crazy spicy wing thing, because I figured, well, you know, Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, they're all about the crazy stunts. We're gonna take a good solid bite here. Got it on the lips. You don't want to get it on the lips. That ain't nothing. It ain't nothing. Alright, now it's something. Alright. We're good. Just gonna wolf this down. Damn it, I really should have brought napkins. This is so, this is so uncouth. I'm sitting here like using my hands to dab my mouth. Oh my god. Oh man. This stuff is murder. Roadrunners Death Valley Rally. You play as the Roadrunner and you run through a bunch of levels. This game is maps. Maps on the poster. And on the back of the actual poster, you have the Lost Vikings, starring Triple H, 5-time world wrestler. This is good. You're capturing me doing an experience. This is like a real experience right now. And now we've got to look at Battle Clash, which is a great Super Scope 6 game. It's a shooter. You hold the Super Scope and you like fire at the screen. And in Battle Clash, you fight a bunch of mechs. And Nintendo Power covers the first 3 fights out of like 12. Some of the later fights are really awesome looking mechs too. The final boss is this dude called Thanatos, and he has like spikes coming out of his shoulders. And you fight him on Mars. I wish I had a Super Scope. I never really got to play any Super Scope games really. I mean, I played T2 the arcade game and Battle Clash and Metal Combat. Metal Combat is the sequel to Battle Clash. All 3 are excellent games, but I played all of them with a mouse. December 1992, top 20 Nintendo Power. NES, Super Mario Bros. 3, number 1. Game Boy, Super Mario Land, number 1. And Super NES, apparently for some reason Mario was not as strong on the Super NES as he was on the Air 2. Mario absolutely dominates NES and Game Boy. Metroid 2 is always second place for like a year. There's like a year span of time where Metroid 2 is second place to Super Mario Land on the Game Boy charts. Super Mario Bros. 3 easily number 1 on the NES charts. But then you've got the Super NES, Super Mario World, buried at number 4. Ahead of it, you've got Street Fighter 2 at number 1. You've got A Link to the Past at number 2. You've got Turtles in Time at number 3. And then you've got Super Mario World at a lowly number 4. Followed by Contra 3 at number 5. Why am I like this? I really, why? So use caution. Do not try this at home. Alright, here we go. This final sauce, Blair's Megadeth with Liquid Rage. Do not do this. God damn. You know what? Hold on. Booyah! Oh God. I'm okay. We got Now Playing with George and Rob. They don't really have any particularly good games to review this month because honestly most of the games that were covered in this issue are from the month before and the month after. The only major game that we have here, we have no major games here. We do have Home Alone 2 Lost in New York for the Super NES. Home Alone 2 Lost in New York follows Kevin McAllister. You know, the Blair's Megadeth kind of hits you on a little bit of a delay. Alright. Okay. So, the biggest game that George and Rob cover this month is Home Alone 2 Lost in New York for the Super Nintendo. We're going to read that one. The description is as follows. Home Alone 2 Lost in New York follows Kevin McAllister as he eludes the bumbling burglars Harry and Marv and survives an adventure in the Big Apple. After a race through a posh hotel, starring Donald Trump, Kevin dashes through Central Park, battles the burglars in a huge townhouse, and makes a run for it through the city streets. Kevin's special items include a super punch gun and a bell that allows him to knock out enemies with a super somersault. We've also got F-17A Stealth Fighter for the NES. The description for this one reads, the sleek stealth fighter soars through 9 risky missions in this 2-player simultaneous flight simulator. One player pilots the jet, while the other player controls weapon systems. Just want to note that I am also a game for 1 to 2 players, ladies. Fight off squadrons of enemy jets, then set your sights on ground targets in Libya, the Middle East, and other dangerous locations. I just want to say that sounded a lot more okay in 1992 than it does now. Alright, Pack Watch. Not really anything interesting on the way in this particular issue, although there is a Ren and Stimpy game on the way for the Game Boy. And I'm sure I wanted that one too. When I was a kid, I didn't know that games based on movies and shows were all uniformly terrible. I was not aware of that yet. So Ren and Stimpy for the Game Boy. The latest cartoon craze. I definitely recommend checking this one out if you ever have the chance to. Brings back a lot of memories of when I was a kid reading this at the library and wherever else it was that I was able to read this stuff. And good times. Yeah, and the spicy wings were good too. It was a real experience, this episode, and I'm glad that you were here to join me for this experience, and I wasn't just suffering by myself. In any case, thank you for joining me. I'm gonna just kind of finish off these wings, and I'll see you guys next time. If anyone who helped to make Nintendo Power if any of the editors or the artists or the writers for Nintendo Power happen to see these videos, or happen to see this video specifically, on the off chance that that happens, I just want to say thank you, because the thing that you created, Nintendo Power, it brought joy to a lot of people, myself included. And I just want to say thank you for bringing that joy into the lives of so many, especially young people. I mean, nowadays we live in an era when joy is a little hard to come by for a lot of folks. And it makes me look back and appreciate even more the joy that I experienced reading these magazines as a kid. So thank you for putting together such a cool, fun, amazing magazine. And on the off chance that any of you guys ever see this, that's all I have to say.